Almost. Good afternoon. And I have a problem. I forgot to turn off the speakers on the televisions because I was fussing with Facebook. It's always something. Hang on just a sec. Facebook. It's always something. Hang on just a sec. So much for my grand entry today. So much for my grand entry today. There we go. One of these days, I'm going to get it right. I'm going to get my timing right and my intro right, and then I'll be happy. Anyway, I'm Bradley McCalister, founder of Spiracraft. This is Spiracraft Live, and we're here to stabilize a Manzanita root burl today. Hey, Brian Schwab is here. Good deal. And so now that I mumbled through the beginning because of I had the monitor speaker still turned on because I was in there fighting Facebook on the computer again. I am going to go back in the control room real quick and enlarge my Facebook monitor feed so I can see what's going on for sure, make sure everything's working right. Like I said, one of these days I will get it right. I think I need to make my other tape, my intro, or buy a new laptop for this Facebook feed. I need to make my intro longer. Maybe like 2 minutes. I gave myself a minute and a half. Hey, there's Rich. Thank you, Rich, for showing up and for providing this wonderful piece of burl. Silly Bradley. Yeah, I am silly. And now I'm going to be mad at myself this whole episode because I had the speaker still turned on the monitors and there was an echo at the beginning. But I'm going to blame it on Facebook for not coming up on that computer. But hey, that's neither here nor there. We're here now and we're ready to have fun. And so I'll wait a few minutes, and for folks to come along and start talking about what we're going to do today. Oh, and I forgot my notes. Go figure. I thought I put the numbers. I know them pretty well. Drawing on our burl here. And it looks like we got three folks on YouTube and one or two folks on Facebook. And I'm going to bend that monitor up so I can see a little bit better. Good deal. Rich, you're doing double duty. You're on both. You got all the bandwidth in the world down there. But I'm excited. Rich, you'll appreciate this. I actually vacuumed the studio earlier today, which is always scary because you run the vacuum and then it makes a ton of dust and all the camera lenses get dirty and everything and all the electronics. It's always kind of scary for me. So I keep the shop vac. I've got a really long hose and I put the shop vac in the doorway with the exhaust blowing out and to stir up as little dust as possible. Kim Tippin did a black resin hybrid with the piece I sent her, and it came out gorgeous. Manzanita is an awesome red color. And Michael McEwen, happy Thursday, Michael. Yeah, and so Rich, I may actually add a little extra color to this today. I've got some dye down here, and I am toying with the idea of doing a little color in the stabilizing. And if you're wondering why I have like everything piled up right here, just a few minutes before I flipped all the switches, it looked like for whatever reason, this front camera, I had the resin sitting way up here on the table, and it was focusing on this label. And not that you guys really want to see my smiling face, but I was out of focus and the burl was out of focus. So I moved everything back to the lathe. And hopefully, if I put it back up there, it'll stay straight. We'll see. Let's see who else popping in here. Mike's in here. Brian. Everybody's just saying hello to everybody. That's all good. Good deal. I'm actually happy. This is what my third stream back. Things are getting cleaned up. Things are getting set up. It's a continuing process. But I'm having fun. I'm excited. I'm ready to roll. And I'm ready to get this guy into the bucket today. I actually had to go break out a 5-gallon vacuum chamber here today because this guy is pretty good size. And so let's give credit where it's due. Rich Bolduc is here. And Rich sent me this Manzanita root burl. I don't even want to think about how long ago. I'll go with a year, maybe 2. And Rich is one of the engineers and the customer service kingpin now down at Nova Technitool. Rich is a great guy, and he provided me with this burl, and he'd been after me here recently to turn this thing. And so I said yes last week. And good morning, Frank. And I said, yeah, I'll do it. And so I pulled it out. Rich, this is a great story, and you can ask my wife, as they say. I had to clean my office, at least one half of it, to find the burl, because it was sadly buried over in a mountain of stuff. So I found the burl, and I got half of my office back, which is a really good thing. So I got a twofer out of this. And I started studying the burl and came up with the idea or the realization that I needed to go ahead and stabilize and cast this. It's got too many issues to just put on the lathe and turn safely. So I didn't want to go there. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to move some of this stuff out of the way here for a few minutes. I'm going to leave the pot there, but I'm going to put the pump down. And I think I can leave this up here. And that'll be all right. This is a 5-gallon resin, 5-gallon container of Best Value Vax stabilizing resin, and that's also a Best Value Vax pump and vacuum chamber. It's all stuff that Spiracraft carries. Matter of fact, everything I'm using today, with the exception of the stabilizing tint, which we don't carry yet, but we will here shortly, is from Spiracraft. You can get it on the Spiracraft website. But let me put a paper towel on this nice piece of glass, and I'm going to put this burl right underneath the top camera, and I'm going to flip you over to 5 here. There you go. And let's see, I can fill you in with the other one. I'm not sure if 7, if an end shot. Let's see what happens if we put that overlay in there. The overlay's not so good. We'll leave that off for now. So here's the burl, and this burl weighed 4 pounds and change on my postal scale, my shipping scale, the other day when I brought it out, when I finally found it. And you can see it has a ton of character. And I investigated that hole right there, and it goes quite deep. Matter of fact, I just discovered I can put my hand, I see daylight, the paper towel. So this hole right in here, I'm going to get a screwdriver here real quick, or something pointy. That hole goes all the way through the middle of this thing. So it's actually hollow down through the center, which I did not realize. But it's a good thing that I chose not to try and turn it, because it would have exploded. So let's see what'll work here. This is my good old handy ice pick. It's my favorite. And I haven't cleaned this out yet. And here is the other end of the ice pick. Right there. You can just barely see it. So this piece is actually hollow right down through the middle. All right? So it is the perfect candidate for what we're going to do with this over the next three episodes. And that's the way this is going to work. Going to do 3 different episodes, because I want to show you the full process of taking this burl from its raw state right now that it's in to a finished piece. And what are we going to do? Well, this week we're going to get it into the stabilizing chamber, and I'll talk all about that today. and we're going to get this wood stabilized, and it's ready to go. It's been in the oven cooking and all that. Next week, it'll be stabilized, and I'll have heat cured the stabilizing resin, and we're going to go ahead and cast this into a mold, into epoxy resin mold, to make a piece that we can then turn in week number 3. So week 1, we stabilize it, we get it into resin here, we get all the air pockets at the cellular level, not these big holes, that's not going to happen. The stabilizing resin doesn't do that, but we're going to fill anything punky in here and get it, we got it dry, we're going to make it nice and solid. Then we're going to drop it into epoxy resin next week. No telling what I'm going to do with colors there. And we'll mold it in a bowl or a bucket, depending on its needs. And then on the 3rd week, we'll demold it, and we'll have a hybrid. We'll have wood plus resin, and we will mount it on the lathe, and we will turn whatever shape or form that I come up with. Now let's see, let's check the column over here. You guys are looking good, talking amongst yourselves. Good deal. Steve says, hi, there's the YouTube feed not live. No, it's live. It should be live. I'm live. And there are other, you may have, Steve, you may have found one that is not, of course, you couldn't have been posted in here and found one that's not live, because there are a bunch of these on YouTube. So click around on the live streams that are going there on YouTube, and you should be good to go. Okay. So, what's the deal? This Burl was, and Rich, you can tell me, I don't know how old this Burl was, how long you had it. If you could pop in the column there, because I'm kind of curious myself, how long this had been out of the ground and drying naturally down in Florida. And your environment there is very similar to what I have here, which is quite humid. So if you get a pop a note in there and let us know when this guy was excavated, captivated, whatever word you might want to use. When did you acquire this? If you know where it came from, if you actually are the one who got it out of the ground or not. So what I did, nice crack in the voice, Brad. I took my digital scale, and if you're going to get into stabilizing, you really want one of these. Digital scale, and I'm going to pop you in the overhead and try and give you a shot of this. Little digital scale, it's not plugged in. You can set them in grams, ounces, and pounds. These things are awesome. If you are a Lumilite person, you're mixing by weight, you need one of these anyway. I work with the Spiracraft epoxy, and I do it by volume, so I don't need it for that. But for drying the piece of wood, these digital scales are the best. And this is a Harbor Freight, wasn't super expensive. You know, I maybe bought their mid or top grade, which still doesn't make it very expensive. So that's what you need. You need a scale to weigh these guys. All right. And what I did is I put this in the oven yesterday morning, and I actually used the oven in the house for the drying just because it's a little bit safer to leave it run for a long, long time. And I dried it overnight. It started at 10 a.m. yesterday morning, and I took it out about 11 today. And what I did is I started writing down, and if you look on the Spiracraft Wood and Resin Facebook group page, you can see me, I made some posts there with the notes of how this was drying and how much weight it was losing over time. Let's see what we got going there. Rich's got a link there. I'm not sure where the link is. I'm looking for Rich. You have no clue. I had someone from Cali send it to you. Okay, well, I'll go with that. So I'm going to go with it was dry when I got it. As dry as it could be. I mean, it sure seems like it's been around for a long time. I'm just looking down here at the screen scrolls. My wife tells me that I'm more awesome than the scale. Well, thank you, honey. I appreciate that. And Mike says he's coming in from Pullet, Washington. Well, great to have you from Washington. Rigid, now that you let them know you're here, everybody's gonna talk to you. So you're going to have to answer everybody, babe. So this guy was dry, and Micah, I apologize, I don't remember your last name, and if you're not in here yet, you probably will be, or you'll see this. One of the folks in the group, the Spiracraft Wood and Resin Community Group, private group, asked me yesterday, I had mentioned that this was dry as it could be relative to South Georgia EMC, and that's the equilibrium moisture content of the piece of wood. And he said, what does EMC mean? Well, what that means is when a piece of wood is considered dry, whether it's kiln dried or air dried or whatever it is, it's going to have a moisture content that is equal. It's going to stabilize at its relative moisture content for the area you have it. So if you're here in South Georgia or Florida, it's going to have a higher EMC than if you're in Arizona, in Phoenix or Scottsdale, or anywhere that's arid and dry. It's going to have a much lower moisture content. And the reason this is important is we want this piece of wood to be as dry as we can get it, within reason, before we put it in the vacuum chamber, okay? We want it theoretically to have no moisture in it whatsoever. Now, this was technically still losing a little bit of weight on the scale, but as I said in the group, it's either going to be completely dry or it's going to be 11:30 in time to take it out, 12:30 and take it out and bring it in here. Let's see, Rich said, who has said it? And And a Facebook user down there says, hi, I actually got to watch live today. Well, great, Facebook user, glad to have you. So, put it in the oven, and I checked it about every 6 hours, wrote down the weights on the gram scale, and it started out around 2,400 and change, and it worked its way. I know it lost 81 grams in the first shot, and then the amount it was losing per 6 hours started to slow down. And then overnight, I checked it like 10 o'clock last night, and then again 7 o'clock this morning with coffee, and it had lost about 15 grams. So it actually kind of had a little surge overnight. And it wasn't hot in the oven. I had it just on warm. I mean, it was warm to the touch. I'm saying it wasn't more than 120 degrees. It was not a high temperature. It wasn't anywhere close to 200. I just dried it real slow, so I didn't have to worry about it. I could walk around and not worry about it. Do not do the next stage when this gets cured with the resin. Don't do that in your house oven. You will stink your house to high heaven. So anyway, this morning it had lost about 3 ounces. Now it weighed 4 pounds on the scale, and I said it's pretty much dry. But optimally, what you do is you leave it in its cooking environment with your scale, and you keep checking it until that number no longer drops. All right, and it'll get less and less and less difference between them. And when it doesn't change, that's as dry as you're going to get it, and that's what we're going to consider absolute dry. One thing is that as soon as you take it out of the oven, especially in an environment like here in the southeast where it's humid, it's going to try and reabsorb moisture. It theoretically is absorbing moisture right now as I speak, because it wants to go back to that level of moisture. The word I believe is hydroscopic, so it's any type of material that can absorb and release moisture. And somebody can correct me if I get that word wrong. So think of it as a sponge. It can absorb water and it can release water. So that's what it's doing. It's going to adjust to whatever the humidity is where it's at, and that's where it's going to sit. You know, kiln-dried framing lumber for a house is about 15%. I think furniture work, 6% is considered dry. Theoretically here we wanted 0%. Now, why is that important, right? Can you stabilize it if it's not 100% dry? Yeah, you can stabilize it. Well, here's the deal. When the moisture in the wood goes into the stabilizing resin, it's going to give you a false reading of bubbles. Because what happens is once we drop this in the resin, and you'll see, and we turn on the vacuum, we're going to submerge this in the resin, we're going to turn on a vacuum, we're going to start to pull the air out of the chamber and the wood, and the resin is going to start to replace those spots. All that air area in the fibers of the wood. Well, if there's moisture in the wood, moisture boils in a vacuum at about 70, 72 degrees. In a previous live stream a couple of years ago, I had a big movie playing on the wall back here showing water in a chamber at vacuum at 72 degrees, and it was boiling. And so this is important because when your gauge as to when is it done being vacuumed is when it stops bubbling. So if you have moisture in your wood, it may have absorbed all the resin and taken all the air out, but if there's moisture in there and that moisture is boiling under the vacuum, it's going to continue to bubble, and so you'll get this false reading. So you'll keep trying to pull a vacuum on it thinking that you don't have all the air out of the wood when you actually do. You just have moisture in the wood. So that's why it's so important to get the wood as dry as possible so that you don't get that false reading of more bubbles because of moisture. Now I'm going to take a quick look over here at the screen because it's been scrolling along and see if there's anything I need to answer. One of these days, going to have a little something in my ear maybe, and somebody will be telling me if I've missed a question or not. Bridget says, Mike Doyle has a question. After drying the wood, do you put it in an airtight container? Mike, yes, if I was going to let it sit any amount of time, I would put it you could put it in an airtight container. A lot of people will throw it in a Ziploc bag. I knew that it was going to be half an hour or something like that from the time I carried this out of the oven to here. So I didn't put it in a Ziploc container or airtight container, but you can certainly do that. Theoretically, it wouldn't gain any moisture, okay, if you need to leave it. So yes, absolutely, you can put it into an airtight container. I would still recommend that you go from drying process to stabilizing resin as quickly as is reasonably possible. We'll leave it at that kind of broad category there. Okay? It depends on where you get your Ziploc bags kind of thing. If you get them like I do down at the Dollar Tree, I'm not sure just how much moisture they're going to keep out, if you know what I'm saying. That's great. I'm glad to see the chat column all lit up today. That looks good. Makes me happy, and I know it makes me have fun out here. So, Mike, I hope that answered your question about that. And I'm looking to see if there's any other questions. So the Facebook user is Mike. Okay, so you are here, Micah. Great. I'm glad you liked the explanation on EMC. I know that was kind of the dry one. I just grabbed it off of Wikipedia and popped it in the comment for you there. So cool beans to that. Okay, so it's been dried. Hello. I'm trying to read the name. Can't quite. It's so far away. I got to get this monitor up higher. It's the YouTube user H-A-I-M. Bridget's got it for me. Thank you, babe. Thank you, Bridget. Bridget is now can be my official greeter when I can't read the screen. So I'm going to set this Burl just right out here for now. All right. And like I say, I got a 5-gallon container out because I cut my 3-gallon in half a year or so ago when I had an accident where all my resin set up because of something I did stupid. I left it outside in the rain, in the heat, and then it set up. And it won't fit in a 2-gallon, so 5-gallon it is. And this is a nice fresh one, as a matter of fact. And I've got it also set up to where with the side camera, you will be able to see on the end view, when I move that, you'll be able to see the vacuum gauge and inside at the same time. Okay? Good deal there. Back to, let's go to 5. So inside, just aluminum pot. The key component or key area on a pot for you in these, this is a glass vac. It's called a glass vac and has a glass lid, not a plastic lid. Where the gauge is mounted, that is the critical point for how much fluid that you put into the pot. Okay? Now this guy, and we drop it into the pot, if I leave it sit just like straight up and down, that's almost level, believe it or not, with the valve. Now I can turn it on its side and it gets a little bit lower. So you can see why I had to use the taller pot. The tallest one I had available. Again, I didn't have it. A 3-gallon might have fit, but what's going to happen is that when we turn this on and turn on the vacuum, there's going to be, the resin is going to bubble. It's going to foam. And so we want to have a little bit of clearance so that it doesn't go out our tube. And we're going to be watching that tube, that area right there, to make sure that it doesn't suck it into our pump. So when it foams up, we will bleed off the air with the valves over here. So what I see is, like I say, it's gonna work. And if I turn it, however I turn it, you know, it might get a little bit lower. And the other thing is that it will probably try and float. Usually when we dry the wood out, it tries to float. And so I have an old chuck, an old Barracuda chuck, and that's what I use for a weight. And as long as it clears the glass, then I'm okay. It's just an old chuck that's all rusted up. The gear is worn out on the back, and Penn State told me that I couldn't replace the gear, and so I'd gotten 5 or 6 years of use out of the chuck, so now it is a wood weight. That's all I can say. So we'll leave that sit in there for right now. I'm going to put the talk about the resin. Resin, this is Best Value Vax stabilizing resin. Best Value Vax will tell you their claim that it is better than cactus juice because it is engineered to soak into wood a little bit better. Have I tested that? No, I haven't tested that. It works great. I've had super success with it. It is less expensive than cactus juice. It's available in quarts, gallons, and as you can see, 5-gallon containers, right? So this is probably 3 gallons in here, more or less. And I have decided, I've made my mind up while we've been talking, that I want to go ahead and add a dye to this color, to this resin. And you can dye it a lot of colors. There's, I don't know, 10, 12 different colors. Alumalite, which y'all know for resin, makes a set of dyes that works with stabilizing resin. And I ordered up like 6 of them recently. And I'll just kind of put them here on top of this, and then I'll flip the camera over. Now, Rich, I hope you don't mind that I'm going to color this piece of wood. All right. I will try to use show some semblance of taste. Sometimes I'm not known for my perfect taste in coloring wood. I'm going to pop you back into the overhead. All right. And then I'll also look at the camera over here and see if there's anything I'm supposed to keep up with. Somebody needs to keep me in line. Absolutely, Rich. And when coloring stabilizing resin, make sure it's a dye and not a pigment. Correct. Rich is right on the spot with that. And Rich, you've done a lot of dyeing, and this is, I want to say it's an alcohol-based, but it actually says on the back that it contains, or what did I read? I read it somewhere a little while ago. What was it said it contained? I saw it. Where'd it go? Where did it go? Have I lost my mind? That maybe it was a different bottle. I know it was one of these bottles. Yes, contains diethylene glycol. Okay, doesn't say it on every bottle. That's kind of interesting. Hey, my dad made it. Good to see you, Dad. So I have some crazy colors here. I have fluorescent orange. I have translucent red, translucent violet, translucent yellow, fluorescent green, and translucent orange. All right. And Rich says he's had better luck with the translucent colors. And the one I'm choosing, gang, and Rich especially, is the translucent violet. not violent, violet. And I think that because once you commit a color to a resin, you can't change it, okay? So you want to make sure that you're going to be happy with the color. Now, I'll be happy with these other colors in smaller batches and experimenting with my crazy projects with fluorescent orange and the fluorescent green. I'll be all good with that. But today I'm going to actually dye the resin with the translucent violet. Now, the reason I'm going to go with violet is I'm going to own this resin in violet, and violet's a great color to work on a lot of the different woods. So I like to work with maple and poplar, and so I think the violet is a good choice to commit however much resin I'm going to have to pour in here. So I'm going to own a fair bit of violet resin, and the ratio is roughly 1 ounce to a gallon to start with. You are not supposed to add 5% by volume and not to exceed, I believe it's 4 ounces to a gallon if I've read it correctly. So I'm not going to worry about that because I just have a 1 ounce bottle. So it's not going to be a heavy coloring of it. I could go heavier if I wanted to, but I'm not going to, and I only have one bottle of this. Now I can always get more translucent violet if I like the color and I want more depth in the color. Box elder is amazing for dye stabilizing. Yes, box elder would be great too. I love dyeing box elder red or yellow. Actually, I like to dye it yellow because it makes the red flames actually last a whole lot longer because they typically fade. And actually this is the first I have used the dyes in the stabilizing resin. And I've got a mountain of wood out here to do other projects with these other colors. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and, I don't know how much resin I need, so I'm just going to go ahead and pour resin in, and then I'm going to add the dye. I'll pull the piece back out or lift it up and stir the resin, stir the dye. I'm going to shake this dye up real good first. I will stir the dye and mix it real well in the piece. And Bridget's talking to my dad. Yeah, Rich, back to the box elder. I love box elder. It stinks like a wet dog, but so does poplar sometimes. Do a rainbow effect, Jeff says. I'm not going to do multicolors. You can do multicolor dyeing in the stabilizing. You can do several stages of that. We're not going to try and do it with this today for this project. Way too much work. But you can indeed. So Jeff, if you've got some multi-dyed, or if you would post some stuff about it in the group, in the wood and resin turning group about multi-dyeing, that would be great information for all of us because YouTube and the internet is the place where you get your information and you're never sure just who knows what. And if you're up on doing multicolor dyes and or Rich, I think Rich, you've probably done it as well. Let us know. So we're going to pop the lid off of this guy, and also if you do a lot of stabilizing and you want to get into it, JP Phillips is here. Good to see you, JP. If you're going to do a lot of stabilizing, buy it in 5-gallon containers. From his quantities. I don't know if I have. Yeah, I'm pretty sure I had the 5-gallon listed. One thing about this stuff, the prices changes all the time. From best value vacs, like so many things, the price is changing all the time. I haven't checked it recently, but 5 gallons is much cheaper. I think a regular gallon is about $79 right now instead of $99 for cactus juice. By the 5 gallons, it may be down into 50s or 60s. Okay. All right. So I think I'll put you in the overhead. I've taken all safety precautions. Wear safety goggles. And actually, I am going to do that. Believe it or not, I have official splash goggles. I call them turning goggles. But it's not a bad idea to put on a splash protectant because I don't want this stuff in my eyes or ruining my cool glasses. So put on your face shield, put on something to protect your eyes. so that you don't get it in your eyes. All right. Again, I don't know how much of this I'm going to need, but we are going to pour. And I have more if this is not enough, heaven forbid. So she's starting to float now. So what I'll have to do is I will put my weight on here, my infamous Barracuda weight, to hold her down. Okay, and have my paper towels right here. One can wear gloves as well. It's going to take the better part of this resin I had here. Like I say, I like violet, so that's cool. I'm going to stop right there. I got just a little bit showing, and I want to see if she bobs like a cork. Yeah, so that's when I put it in that format and it rolls over like a cork. Because I don't have a big screen to drop down in here in a 5-gallon container. You can get, especially in the vertical, the tall ones. This guy's going to be a little rascal for me. In the tall cylinders, they make a screen, a plastic screen that holds everything down. Yeah, that'll work. I know it looks a little crazy crooked in there. And we still have about 2 inches here. Rich, the one thing that I haven't done, I've talked about it before, and I'm going to do it, is lead shot. I want to get, and you can buy lead shot even on Amazon in 5, 10, 50-pound bags. Hey, Joe's in here. Good to see you, Joe. Rich, yeah, so I've been thinking about getting lead shot and putting it into mesh bags, because that will wrap around just about anything as well. And I'm just reading as things scroll by there. Soups, yeah. Yep, Rich, you can do multiples at one time. So I have all of, looks like about a half a gallon left of resin. And since this has been so ornery, I'm just going to leave that right underneath. And you can see some of the loose stuff that has floated off of there, okay? And there's no need to worry about the squirt tube on this because we're going to use the whole thing. So this is that's probably close to 2.5 gallons, maybe 3. I know it's a 5-gallon pot, but we got a piece of wood in there taking up a bunch as well. Reggie, don't want the soup for dinner? Get my famous ice pick out here. All right. Translucent violet going into the pot. And what I might end up doing is putting on a pair of gloves and just using the piece to stir to mix my dye in. Instead of pulling it out and dripping it all over my nice new floor in here. And the other thing I'm going to do to get everything I can is I'm going to take my bottle and I'm going to squeeze the bottle, and then I'm going to suck resin up into the bottle and shake the bottle and then squeeze that out. That gets any extra dye out of the bottle. And I'll do that again. And I can see that I'm pulling pulling dye out of the bottle. Now, technically, I should have that glove on now, but I didn't quite get there yet. They're used to seeing me at lunchtime with different color hands. Okay, and I'm just going around to where the resin is still completely clear and pulling some up in the bottle. This is a concentrate. So you can get a lot of color out of the bottle if you're using the whole bottle. Keep doing this and sucking this up in here, or of course you could cut the top off and all that good stuff. Okay. And I'm going to stop right there. And I'm actually going to get some gloves, believe it or not, because I'm not going into this 5-gallon container without some gloves on to mix this. And normally I would have mixed the resin with the colorant ahead of time. The only reason I didn't is I didn't know how much I was going to need. Does that make sense? I didn't want to commit to the whole 3.5 gallons or so, whatever was in that box container, if I didn't need it for this color. Put in there, find out how much I need, and then add my color. Now you can also, I mixed this right in the container, as you can see. You can also, you can sleeve it, you can put another container inside. You don't have to actually use this pot, although it will clean up with soap and water. And you're going to want to put, I'll pop up here for a second. You're going to want to put the resin back into plastic container. Don't put it in the glass jars or glass jugs. My dad says, why not use a stick? Well, Dad, I don't know that I'll get it all stirred around the piece of wood with the stick. And Bridget doesn't have whisks. Rich, I buy my own whisks at the Dollar Tree. Okay? Now, I don't know where they are these days, but I buy my own whisks for $1. All right. So I'm just going to take my weight up here, and I'm just going to hold that. And I'm just going to use this big old piece of wood and pop you into the overhead. I'm just going to use the wood as my stir stick. All right, that makes it pretty quick, pretty good agitator. I see the autofocus trying to figure out what to do there. I do like violet. I've never been a purple person, so to speak, but I like violet, and I like it violet in my woodwork stuff. All right, so I'm going to find a nice, and I'm going to turn this over because that might go down in a hole. I'm going to find a nice, secure attempt to location. It got dark in here and I can't see the piece of wood anymore. I'm looking for that hole right there, or this one, possibly this one. That's why we wear gloves. Thing bobbing like a cork. And part of that is because it doesn't have any flat sides on it, and I chose not to turn it ahead of time. I could have turned it, on the lathe. There we go. I think that one's good. We'll give it a second and see if it crashes or not. I could have turned it on the lathe, but I didn't want to risk putting this piece on a lathe. It seemed so volatile, the word I'll use. Potentially volatile to come apart, and I just didn't want to do that. I'll get that off my floor real quick. All right, pop back up here to 3. So, come on, camera focus. We've got our wood in the pot, our chicken is in the pot, it's ready to cook, right? And the next thing, I'm going to make sure that my lid is clean and my rim. And this actually is a brand new pot, so it doesn't give me an issue. I tested the vacuum on it. It actually pulls full 30 inches. And one thing, let me show you here, because this is a new pot. Pop back into maybe 7. You see this little black plug right here on the gauge? You want to, when you first get out of the box, pull that plug and let this gauge acclimatize to where you are. This one moved quite a bit when I did. It was sitting up on halfway to -5 when I took it out of the box. And I've pulled this out a couple of times because I was pulling 30 plus, which we know is not possible. You can't pull more than 29.9 something. Rich engineer, tell me what it is. You can't pull an actual 30 inches of vacuum. It depends on what their elevation is. And the higher the elevation, the less vacuum that you can pull. So take that out and let it adjust. Make sure your rim is clean. Now when your pot gets old or has been used a lot, you can steel wool this edge, because you may find that you're having to press the lid down to get it to give you your vacuum. Yes, inches of mercury, and it's based on the height above sea level, but can you remember what absolute vacuum is, Rich? And I'm out of focus, camera. That makes me mad. Autofocus on the front's not working so well. As I can make it. Probably make it with the light harder to see. And an overlay of the end camera. I think I'm going to switch that. I'm going to take that one off. I'm going to go to the end and overlay the top. There we go. Because I want you to be able to gauge come up as we turn this on. Lost my sound, huh? Well, that's weird because it shows that I have sound on my end. Sound, sound, sound. Lost sound to YouTube. Let's see here. Wonder why it lost sound. I didn't hit any sound buttons that I'm aware of. Sound should be, it came back, but I keep breaking up. Strange. Not sure what the deal is. Get rid of that preview. That maybe might be doing it. Sounds more like static, loose wire or something. Well, this is my good one too. It's all tight. It should be good. I don't know what the craziness is. Well, hopefully, let me know if it gets worse or if it stays decent. Getting bursts of static. Because this is the only one. And this Here we go. Our static. Are we back? We're back there. Look, I got a bad wire. Yep, got a wire that's got an attitude. Direction. How about tend to have a bit of static, but let's see if we can't get everything back in order. This one I know has a little bit of static sometimes at the base. We'll set this one up as a lavalier, and I'll try not to move too much. Good thing I have an extra mic. I'm gonna mute this for a second. Hang on just a second. Okay, let's see how that does. Different mic. This one does have a little scratchiness sometimes at the unit. So let me know. There'll be a little scratchiness as I put this back in a pocket. Now theoretically it should stabilize here in a minute. Yep, that's better, and it should be. I went to a, and I apologize for the technical issues. I went to a lav mic, and as long as I don't move the transmitter, the wire on this mic is definitely worn out. As long as I don't move the transmitter, if I don't move around too much, we should be all good. Apologize for that. I don't know why that other mic has always been rock solid for me. Let me down today. It's always something. Anyway, where are we at? We're ready to turn on a vacuum pump. And my vacuum pump is down below. And I'm going to leave it down there. And we're going to go back to our setup of program on 7. So you can see the overhead to the right there. And the vacuum gauge here in the main screen. And you'll see the bubbles. And actually what I might do, and as I move you might get, I'm going to bring this pump up to somewhere where I can turn it on and off easy. I'm going to put that over there. All right. Let's see here. All right, I think we're ready to go. I got my pump. I'll show you here real quick. I put the pump up here. My on-off switch is right over here on the end by the controller now. That way, what I need to do is watch my pump, and I need to watch. Let me switch back to 7. I need to watch into where the overflow is. Okay, so you'll hear a little bit of pump sound up high. Yeah, static will come back when I move. I'll try and stay still. So right now the system is wide open. Close our valve. you'll see the gauge start to move. Purple bubbles. Hey, I've never had, or violet. I've never had violet bubbles. Hey, Roy made it. Good to see you, Roy. Thanks for dropping in. You can catch the first hour or so on the replay. Glad you made it. So this first purge, it'll be several big purges. And we're going to block that off and we're going to bleed this. Bleed those bubbles off. Rich, I do not have a trap on this. Need one, because I'm running pretty close to the vent today. And so what you want to do is you want to monitor this guy until it stops foaming so much that it can overdo itself. Matter of fact, Rich, Best Value Vacs will not warrant their pump if you don't run a trap. I like the violet bubbles. And hopefully my movement, all I did was like switch legs. Hopefully that doesn't make too much static on the system there. And I'm hoping that I can clean out my other microphone input and get rid of that static. I hate buying $600 microphones when I don't need to. You like the way that it bubbles up inside the chuck? Stop her there. Bleed her off. And this takes a few minutes usually. And then after it settles down, after you get the initial run out, it settles down and you can just let it run. And you can see every time I bleed it off that the gauge pulls back up. Sorry, it looks like it froze on Facebook now. Facebook is always so good. We get up close to our vent, we stop. A trap would stop this for me from having to worry about that, which is what Rich is talking about. You have a canister in between, and any overflow would go into that canister or trap and not make it to your pump. So what's going to happen once we finish up here today, the way I do this, I run them and then turn them off and soak them, and run them and turn them off and soak them. I don't know what Bridget's talking about, N-O-T-I. And I'll leave this in until like 2 days before next week, till probably next Wednesday before I cook it. I'll leave it in the pot, soaking, because it will continue to absorb even though the bubbles have stopped bubbling. And I stop to be safe, bleed off my bubbles. Fire her back up. It's interesting watching, there's a 20-second delay between Facebook and live. And so my upper monitors, if you saw the pictures from this morning, show the system monitor, and then I have one down below that shows Facebook. And I think what I'll do, let's see here, I think it's just doing pretty well. It's actually slowing down a little bit, but there's a lot of air in this burl. This burl has a whole bunch of stuff about it. Lots of undulation. It's going to be an awesome piece. Now, next week, do not miss next week, because the question is going to be, where am I at here? The question next week is going to be, what color resin are we going to cast this in? What color combinations are we going to cast this in? I want you guys to be thinking about it so that when we come back next week, let me just close this off. Next week, be thinking about what color, and it'll depend on how violet this comes out, but we're going to come up with an interesting resin cast colors. And I'd like some interesting contrast. So I always like it when you guys participate and give me ideas too, and colors and all. And you can see now. Let me pop back into. Let's see, where are we at here? You're seeing that 7. Get the right one. There we go. Hang on. Hang on. Brad doesn't know what he's doing. The bubbling has slowed down dramatically from what it was initially. Still strong, but not nearly as much as it was before. Well, Restream says, hey, congratulations, you've achieved 100 messages today with Restream chat. Well, thank you, Restream. Now what I want you to do, Restream, is to put this chat onto my website, because you can watch this live feed on Spiracraft. The only difference is there's no chat column there yet, and I'll be glad when Restream puts that chat column in there. So if you can see now, it's bubbling, but it's not. It's stabilized below the outlet, and so I can just sit here and I'm going to watch that and monitor that. But that tells me that the initial burst is over of air coming out, and it's going to simmer, and we don't have to worry about the fact of it sucking the resin into our pump now nearly so much. And I'll usually run these, and I'm going to pop back up to the front here. I'll pop back up here, and I'll keep one eye on the pot. And let me do the overlay of 5. We'll put that on there. There we go. Well, I think that's the right one. And yeah, I'm doing good. So it's not coming into the outlet area at all. So we're safe. But you can see it is still bubbling away. Hopefully the microphone is not scratching away. But so as I was saying a minute ago, be thinking about a color combination. Imagine this burl is this kind of violet. Now it won't be this intense, I can assure you that. It won't be super intense. And Rick says, does the stabilizer become contaminated with the moisture? How many times can you use it? Rick, it doesn't become contaminated with the moisture, because in theory, 1, the moisture is all gone, and 2, it is a little, I believe there's some water-based element to it, so you can clean it up with soap and water to get things off, and you can use it over and over and over. So that's why when you commit the color to it, you want to be sure you've committed something that you want. But when this is all done, I'll pour it back into a jug. I'll probably pour what's left in the big 5-gallon jug off into a small container, and then I'll pour this violet back into the 5-gallon container, and just you reuse it over and over and over, because only a small amount gets absorbed. It depends on the wood. Some wood absorbs a lot of resin, and some wood, the harder denser woods, don't hardly absorb any. So it really depends on the wood. Hey, Jeff Peters made it. Good to see you, Jeff. I hope you're doing well. Must be lunchtime at the at the railroad in not Milwaukee. You're not in Milwaukee. Red, where are you, Rich? Or not Rich? Jeff. I'm trying to remember the name of the town you're in. It doesn't matter. You're up there where it's cold. It's probably already cold. But no, so you can keep using the resin over and over until you use it up. And if you're using just the neutral, the plain natural color, it might get a little brown. Sometimes it will pick up color from the wood. And if you want no coloration, then you're going to have to set that one off and use it for something that's okay if it gets a little bit of color to it. I had some poplar, something that I had brought from out here in my pile where I'm rotting wood on purpose. That colored it up to a brown, but you can keep using it over and over and over. That's not a problem. And Jeff says my trainees, so that's why it took so long. So yeah, this is pretty safe now. It's kind of funny, ironically, that Best Value Vacs changed the color of their rims, and it's virtually the same violet as the resin that we have in here today. And so, I could, if I wanted to, I could just shut that down and shut this off. Now, here's the thing about doing that. You see that it's still bubbling here at the moment, and it will do that for a little bit. I've closed the valve, so both valves are closed. The pump is not running. This is what's called a static vacuum, which means that in a little bit it'll stop bubbling. It's not pulling any more air. This air is bubbling out into the chamber, but since there is no positive vacuum, it's not going to, if you left the vacuum on here, like say this is showing, well, it's got the needle pegged again. If it shows, 29.9 on your gauge and you walk away for a week, that's going to be static, and it's not going to actually be drawing any more air out because there's no pulling force. It's a static situation. It's not a positive, and I know this is weird, positive negative force here pulling the air out. As my husband says, yippers. It's great having my wife pop in here today. It's a rare occasion. I'm so glad that she's here. She gets to see the replays, but she doesn't get to see. I wish she'd sit over here in the studio with me instead of in the house. She's not far away, but I wish she was like right over there in the corner, because then she could hold up cue cards of things that I need to do. But anyway, so you don't want to. The static is just soaking, and soaking is good. Let it soak. Let it soak for days and days. It doesn't hurt to let it soak. Okay. But when these bubbles go away, nothing more will be happening other than the soaking effect. All right? What are we doing on time anyway? 2 o'clock. I knew this one would be a little shorter. Now, next week will be a little bit longer, and then because we'll be casting, and then the third week when I turn this thing, expect a full 2 hours, because I'll turn it and we'll turn it, we'll sand it, and I may, depending on what I think, I'll throw some finish at it. And this is going to get a lacquer finish. I've already decided what kind of finish it's going to get. So I'll sand it, and with the Indasa sandpaper that I have that goes from 40, as you saw with the other resin, from 40 to 1200 grit, we'll be able to sand this guy up nice and smooth, and then I'll put a lacquer finish on it. Use Chromacraft aerosol lacquer, spray lacquer, and then we can buff that lacquer into time. And this will be this will be one of the pieces that I like to make. It'll look like a piece of glass, so it'll look like wood and glass and resin kind of guy. Rich says stabilizing penetrates the wood and hardens any soft, punky wood in the piece. Oh, okay, I see. Because the question above from Rick was, what's the purpose of stabilizing versus going straight with epoxy casting? And Rich is 100% correct that it stabilizes the wood and hardens any punky. And also, another big thing is it also helps remove air, because air is our enemy. And I didn't talk about this one in relative to the casting part. The less air that is in the piece when you cast it in the resin and put it in the pressure pot. So the vacuum chamber is pulling the air out. The pressure pot is compressing what air is left into microscopic bubbles or non-existent bubbles so you can't see them. Well, especially a piece like this with a lot of voids in it, we want to get as much of that solidified as we can, so that we have less air pockets to have to deal with in the resin. All right, now these guys, a piece like this, and I know Rich has done some of these crazy ones too, you always fight air pockets that if it's a really big pocket, not just a bubble, but you can get in a piece like this, you can have a pocket depending on where that's sitting, in how it's sitting in the cast, in the mold, in the pressure pot, and you'll have a big enough air pocket that the compression cannot get rid of it. And then when you turn it, you've got this big void. So if that air was escaping from the wood in the pressure pot when it was in the resin, you can get that issue. So you want to get rid of as much air out of a piece of wood as possible. That's one of the other things that it really does help to do. Let's see what's going on in the feed here. Do-do-do-do-do. Whenever I'm having fun, I hum. Yeah, Rich says that epoxy for the most part just fills outer voids and crevices. It fills the big stuff. That's absolutely correct. Michael says after stabilizing, the wood will not absorb any moisture, and that's a fact too. If you get it fully stabilized, it's hard as a rock, and it is wood plus resin, and the wood cannot reabsorb moisture. That's a great point, Michael. Thank you for bringing that up. The wood is completely saturated with this stabilizing resin, and it's not going to take in any moisture. It really is. It's wood plus resin. It's the hardest wood you've ever seen if you've never stabilized a piece. And then gone to turn it, you'll be go, wow, this thing is really hard. And I find, and I don't know if any of you guys have found this as well, stabilizing resin to me seems to be much harder on the shore scale than the epoxy resin. I think the epoxy resins are softer. I'm not sure about the Alumilite urethanes. They're probably not as hard as the stabilizing resin either. Rich says, yeah, stabilizing is great for items that got a lot of hard contact, like knife scales. Get a lot, yeah, because it's hard as a rock. It's super, super hard. It's great having you guys in. It looks like most folks are in the column are on YouTube today, and I do think that YouTube is a better feed than Facebook. Facebook seems to freeze. It looks like there's only 2 people over on Facebook. And I'm gonna get it. I need another computer out here. Only got 3. I want another one so I can monitor YouTube at the same time as I monitor Facebook. Or maybe I could just give up on Facebook and start monitoring YouTube. I mean, based on today's chat column, I should be monitoring YouTube and staying out the wind with Facebook. But obviously there's 2 people on Facebook, and I'm not going to abandon it. Of course, one of them on Facebook is Rich, because he's in both places. Yeah, you've noticed that the stabilizing resin is a lot harder once cured. Yeah, I have both up. Well, Rich, you keep my numbers up. You know, you helping me pad my account there for what that's worth. With more people in my, it's funny. I go back in the house and Restream gives me a report on how many viewers I had and whatnot. And but yeah, I would like to have a monitor for Facebook and YouTube, because sometimes there are issues. This is totally off the topic of what we're doing. Sometimes there's an issue on Facebook and not an issue on YouTube, or vice versa. And it would be nice for me to be able to know that, hey, if you can, I see there's a problem that Facebook is freezing and YouTube's doing good, jump over to the YouTube feed. Then of course I could add another computer and monitor Spiracraft's feed as well. But I doubt that it's going to get utilized until there is a chat column there. What else is going on before we wrap this up? Steve Wife says 2 is better than 1. I have them both. Yep, okay. What's on sale? Oh, on sale this week. Always got to have a sale on something, especially in the fall. The woodcut tools, True Grind system. I just happen to have the True Grind jig here, Jump on the website. I've got them 10% off of the already reduced off of retail prices. So got the jig. It's all set up over there with the slides and all. It's all on sale. So jump in and get you some if you're sharpening your tools, because we're going to need sharp tools. And I will use carbide and standard high-speed steel tools. When I turn this, just to show you, I will grab Carter & Son bull gouge, spindle gouge, high-speed steel M42, 10% cobalt. I'll use this. I might use scraper. Right, I get these super sharp, and because you can turn resin with conventional tools. You just need them to be super sharp, and you need to be a little bit careful. So that'll be week 3 when we actually turn it. So you'll need sharp tools. So if you need a sharpening jig, if you don't have a sharpening jig yet, like I said, we've got the woodcut true grind system on sale this week through Monday. Jump in there. They're already like probably 10%, 15% off of retail, and then I took it on the site. I got them on sale, and then I added a coupon code out there. And if you can't find the code, contact me, and I'll hook you right up. And that's going on until Monday. And then it'll be something else on sale. Fall is sale time for wood turners. We sell all kinds of stuff in the fall. All right, what else is going on? Rick says, when you hollow this, will you go to a depth that the stabilizer didn't get that far into the wood? I will go all the way down inside the piece, and so theoretically, Rick, theoretically it will have penetrated all of the wood, all the way through. Especially this piece, you may not have been here early on. I took my ice pick and went all the way through the burl. So even though the burl is, say this big, it's got a hole that goes all the way through, and so it's got a perimeter, and let's say that perimeter is 2 to 3 inches thick all the way around, and then it's got its height of 6, 7 inches, something like that. So what we really have is a piece of wood that's 2 inches thick by 7 inches tall, and it's circular minus undulations. So this resin will penetrate that full 2 inches of wood everywhere, 2 to 3 inches. So all the wood fibers will have been penetrated with this resin. So no matter where I turn it, it will have, the resin will have made it there on a piece like this. Now, if this was an 8-inch solid block of something hard, dense, and oily, I haven't tried those, but apparently it's really difficult to get the resin into large blocks of really hard, dense, and oily woods. The softer woods, and the burls are porous. Punky wood, it's definitely going to go in there. A piece of really soft punky wood, it's amazing. You can watch it drink resin. You'll sometimes have to add resin back into the pot. Let's see. Yeah, Rich says if you need chucks, Bradley sells Nova chucks, and they're on sale. That's a fact. And actually, I just added the Supernova bundle pack, the one with the 4-inch jaws and the 5-inch jaws. I've got that in stock. And Nova chucks are on sale. Nova's great stuff. And let's see, Mike says, if all goes according to plan, the resin will totally penetrate the wood. Yes, absolutely. Rick, you're quite welcome. Played with a little epoxy, but never stabilizing. Yeah, once I started stabilizing things, I kind of got all kind of crazy with it. I like doing it. And I'm not a pen turner. A lot of people stabilize for pen blanks and things like that, and that's cool. Just, I don't do pens. They don't, excite me. But I've got a mountain of wood out here that I need to get back on that is sufficiently rotten now and full of wormholes and colored and discolored. And what I will do is bring them in, rough turn them into just a rough shape of a bowl, and they have tons of character. But you can't turn them; they're way too soft, rotten, punky, all that. And I'll dry them out in the oven, and then I'll go through this process, and there'll be wood plus resin, and then I'll cast them again with resin and fill the voids, and then turn them and have really cool pieces. And Rick, if you jump back in, like say last year, it was called Monday Methods before I switched the name here recently to Spiracraft Live. On the Spiracraft in YouTube there, look at Monday Methods, and you'll find some of the episodes where I was doing that with pieces of wood that I have basically rotted and then turned bowls, and it was really cool. And let's see, what else is going on in here? You stopped at 14 Nova Chucks. Well, I stopped at 14 lathes a couple of years ago and cleaned out my lathes. Mike Doyle says, I've boiled oily type wood to reduce the oil, then dry and stabilize. Well, that's a cool idea. So you boil some of the oil out of it. Interesting concept. I can see how that could work. Thanks for the tip, Mike. And okay, well, let's see. Let's fire. I'm gonna fire up the vacuum one more time. We'll fill this guy full of bubbles, and we'll check on any other questions. And then I'm gonna go have lunch with my wife because she's home today. So back into, well, you can see the overhead there, but I'll put the main program on the overhead. There we go. So that's still the residual bubbling going on. And put this on 7 for the overlay. So there's no vacuum on this. There's just residual vacuum still at the moment, okay? And I will fire this back up. And it will get more active, would be a good word. Michael says he's down to 7 lathes. I've just bought a new Comet and it came with another chuck. Yeah, I'm thinking about, I've got a few more than I need. Like I said, I had 14 because I had 2 warehouses and I had 3 workshops. And I finally pared it down, and right now there's 1, 2, 3. I've got 3, 2 of which I don't use. I think I may turn 2 of those loose, although one of them's a Jet 1642 that I've had since I started turning, and I'm not sure that I really want to turn loose in my 1642. But I've got another Delta, a 1642 style Delta, stainless steel actually, which is good here in the South because it doesn't rust. But that one is definitely for sale. I just got to get out to the warehouse and dig it out. Because I have a new lathe coming. Right, Rich? I have a new lathe coming. A new Nebula one of these days, which will replace this Colt, which has been a trusty lathe for me. But the new Nova Nebula will be in here in the studio sometime, hopefully in December, last I heard. So you can see how this is getting all nice and active in there again. They're on the water. That's great. Great to hear. Yeah, I've got stuff that's not on the water anymore, but it's still not here. That's an interesting reflection. Whatever that is right there. It must be something coming off a light. Uh-oh. Data breach, compromised, reuse, protect passwords now. This is Spiracraft. God knows what's going on by Orbit there. You probably can't see this. It's on my computer. It says that I've been compromised and data breached and reused. And some junk thing popped up on the laptop. But this guy will run like this, and I'll just come and go and keep pulling. Oh, I was leaning over the way there, leaning my head in there. Hey, see my hair is getting longer, but it's not. I still haven't had it cut since they scalped me. I just gave you a little shot of my hair. See, I actually have a little bit of hair on top now. Yeah, okay. And I think we've watched probably enough bubbles today. So let's take off the overlay. Let's go back up to the front shot. You've had Vax run for 2 or 3 days straight, yeah. Just let her run if you want to. Just let her run until she stops bubbling. And if your wood is dry, it will stop bubbling. I've had a great time out here today. Again, this is a 3-part series. Next week we will cast this guy. And then the following week we'll turn it. So don't miss Spiracraft Live. Always on Thursday now, always at 1 o'clock. Going to be fun with this piece. And if you're here and you're not a member of the Spiracraft Wood and Resin Turning Community private group on Facebook, search it up over there and join. Ask to join and pop you right in there, because I post things in there that I don't post out in other places, and I need to get back to doing some sales in the private group as well. Like I say, summer was long. I had all kind of crazy things going on this summer. I'm getting back in the groove of stuff now. I'm feeling good about it, and doing more in the private group and more sales, all kinds of fun stuff. Jeff, you're quite welcome. Have a good day up there. Let's see. And Bridget and I are going to go look at colored leaves this weekend. We're going to go back to North Georgia and enjoy the last of the fall leaves. Visit with my mom and dad. I know my dad was in here. So good deal. We're going to take a little break, get out of town, go chill. So again, thank you everybody. I'm going to shut this down, and I think I found a way the other day. If I can remember, I did it from the office, but I want to find a way to do it from in here. That I think I can turn on my video and make it happen. And we'll make that be my exit. So we're going to program 8 when I do this. Thank you everybody once again. If this works, I will see you next week. I'll try and fix my microphone issue. Appreciate you coming, and take care. Have a great weekend.